Welcome back to Jasonunleashed, guys. How's it going? Jason Carter here. Thank you so much for joining me, and thank you so much for watching. Hope you guys had a great weekend. Happy Monday evening. I know it's kind of late to be doing an Unleashed, but I'm on the East Coast, so I figured I would switch up a little bit because my guest tonight is an incredible man. He is BRIAN BALTHAZAR. He is the host and executive producer of some of the coolest stuff that you've watched on TV. This guy has been behind it, and he's going to be on the show today, and we're going to talk, we're going to chat. He has lived this incredible life as a talent. Hey Shanta, hey everyone. And I'm excited to talk to him because I've loved him for years, followed him for years, and now he's going to be on the show. So you guys know the drill. Any comments or questions, leave them below. We'll try to get to them. He's going to chime in a second. Let me wave at some people. Boom, boom, wave, 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 wave. Christian, hey. Hey Archie. Everyone watching. Great. Oh, let me say hi again. And Brian just stepped into the room with BRIAN BALTHAZAR. Isn't that a great name, BRIAN BALTHAZAR? Also, Climb to the Top says Brian is awesome. I agree. That's why he's on my show. Holla. Brian.
Hey.
Hello.
I can't hear you. That's the only thing. Just a minor detail. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, I can hear you. Why can't you hear me?
You can. Okay. I'm going to vamp for a minute. This is what we do, right?
Sure. I'm just, you go ahead and get situated. I'll just check my Instagram while I'm waiting.
Back in. Okay. So can you vamp a second? And I realize I'm very close.
Yes. You're very, it's okay though. But look, hey, it's not HD. It's not HD. So we don't see the pores. Babs says she hears us both. Oh, he's going to go again. Okay, cool. Hi, Babs. Brian, he's going to log out, log back in, and come back on the show. So I'm going to continue to wave at you guys. Also, I hope you guys had a great Thanksgiving. I know it seems like Thanksgiving was like a year ago because 2020, every day feels like it's 5 months. But with that said, though, I hope your holiday was awesome and you shopped today on Cyber Monday. I spent no money today. I'm so proud of myself. I'm very proud of myself because normally on Cyber Monday, I go ham. But I cannot do that at all. So tech difficulties. Okay, look, Brian's back. Let's go live with Brian again. Yes, technical difficulties, but this is live television. This is how we roll when you work in live television. Sometimes there's glitches, sometimes there's technicalities that you can't control. And now there's Brian. Hey, Brian.
Hey, Jason. How are you?
I'm good. How are you? Can you hear me?
I can. Can you hear me?
I can hear and see you. Hello. Welcome to Jason Unleashed.
I'm so honored and thrilled to finally do this, and I'm a huge admirer and fan of yours. So
thank you
for having me on. I mean,
of course.
Good company. You have such great guests.
Thank you, Will. Same. Fan of yours. Glad to have you on. Glad we can make this happen. The universe made it happen when it was supposed to, and you are here. How are you doing? How are you holding up in quarantine? What's life been like?
Oh, it's been a lot, right? It's been a lot. I eat my feelings during the day and drink my feelings at night, and I'm wearing sweats from the waist down, but and I've been busy, been working busier than I thought. Like, this is harder than I thought it would. I thought, oh, working from home, but no, you just live at work now.
You do. There's no excuse for why you can't work. It feels like we work longer days now working at home than we did punching in someplace wherever that was before the end of the world.
Totally. It looks like I'm in a chapel.
I know. No, I was going to say, it looks like you're in the Temple of Doom from Indiana Jones. Like, where are you? What's going on?
I'm in my basement, and I decided to put up this really, unusual wallpaper to, really make it feel like a club where I lost my wallet. I was here last night, and I lost my wallet, and I came back. So this is like the game room, music room. And I just decided, let's go crazy with the wallpaper. And I'm kind of digging it. But I realized out of context, it looks like I just got out of confession.
Well, hey, people have stories about things that happen in confessions. So, I mean, we've seen many years of reality TV with confessionals. So, hey, don't knock a confession.
Right, this is my confession camp right here. So
well, Brian. Well, I love it. I'm here for it. I accept it. I see it. I'm digging it. You get in my background. I have a picture of my beautiful daughter, Julia.
Oh, God, wow.
Right, I know. And I didn't take that picture. Her sister did. So, but yeah, we have talented kids. That's a whole other show. Let's talk about you. Let's get into how your career, first of all, is crazy, man. Some of the stuff you have done and the things that you have created and linked your talents to are just.
Oh, you're very kind. I feel very lucky, very blessed, very fortunate. It has been a little crazy in a wonderful way. I love the adventure. Not everything, by the way. Some things on paper look like better and more successful. I was more successful at it than I was. But some things, like, I was like, oh, I'm not that good at this, or this isn't right for me. So some things I did for very short periods of time.
But you know what? That's all part of your journey. Let's talk about that journey though, Brian.
Okay.
How did you are a pop culture expert. I've watched many of people who call themselves a pop culture expert on a lot of different really cool places, and they all are terrible. You are not one of those people. You are a bona fide pop culture badass. How did you enter entertainment news and the entertainment business?
Well, I was a late bloomer in TV. I always wanted to be on TV. When I was a kid, I was not super athletic, and my brother was. So he was out like throwing and catching balls and kicking them and putting them in hoops, and and I was like, maybe I'll watch TV. So I had like my education in pop culture very early, but then I was kind of misguided, and I lived. I had every job for like 2 weeks to 2 months, and I couldn't figure it out. And it wasn't until I was 28 and was living in my car that I finally, and I only did it for a summer. Like, I wasn't forced into my car from poverty. I just knew that it was either tough it out over the summer and like kind of sleep in your car a bit, or go back to my hometown, which didn't have any TV opportunities. So I did it, and I got a job in a small news station, and that's how I first got hooked. And I was a producer. I've been a producer longer than I've done things on air. And I still love both, but that's how I started, and that's when I was 28. And that's already, for like, some people think their career's over at 28. I was just getting started at 28.
Yeah, which I love that you point that out, because I'm sure you have people who reach out to you. You've had conversations with people who are on a different journey in the business, and they attach themselves to this notion that by 25 you need to have a 3-year deal on E and have been around the world and done all these things. And really, a lot of people don't even hit their stride till they're 30s or even late 30s.
I agree. And it's also like we see those iconic, I always thought of it when I saw like Mariah Carey, Janet Jackson, nowadays Taylor Swift, and I was like, they were so awesome. And I think like they were 19 or 21. So we see those stories and they sound so amazing. And then we see those lists, and these lists make me crazy. Like the top 30 under 30, I'm like, well, I guess I aged out of that one. Then
right.
It's like top 40 under 40. I'm like, oh crap, like I'm really aging out of these lists. But it's like, I always, in this weird thing, I don't know if you were like this as a kid, and I'd love to know the answer. Did you know what you were going to do, or did you know there's a difference between knowing what you want to do and knowing that it'll happen. I always thought it would happen, but I thought it would happen at a later age. And I don't know why I thought that as a kid. I just did. I thought it's not going to come right away. And boy, maybe I manifested that myself that way, but it's really true. It didn't come, I still feel like I have so much more I want to do. Like, I don't feel like I'm a success story yet.
Well, that's a lie, because you are a success story, one. And two, to answer your question, I always knew I wanted to be in entertainment, but I didn't know in what capacity, because I was going to dance for Janet Jackson. I was going to dance for Britney Spears. I was a television host when I was 16 years old, got into radio very young, but life takes you in so many different ways and paths that also kind of turns you off from a lot of things because of experiences that may not have gone the way you wanted. But I didn't know I just knew I wanted to be in entertainment in some way, shape, or form.
Yes, I would agree. Yeah, I didn't have a lot of examples that I really could turn to for advice or mentors at the time.
Right.
And I didn't know what I was doing. No one in my family had gone through that channel of education. Like, very few people at that time in my family had gone to a university, and even fewer, none of them had kind of pursued this business. And to this day, and I'm sure you have this happen a lot of people ask you, like, how do I make it in this business? And if it were as simple as like one trajectory, I would have done that one, or everyone would be doing it. There's so many different ways to do it. So you kind of lean in on the like work hard and be nice, which is what I really do think is the best. And yes, there's a lot of small miracles that happen along the way, and hopefully you find people support you. And I feel like I was fortunate that I did have people give me opportunities along the way.
Well, yeah, you've had some incredible opportunities, but also I think it speaks to the talent that you innately have. Let's talk about those opportunities, Brian, because as I said, your career has been incredible. And it's always hard when people say that. You look at it like, really? But from the outside looking in,
thank you.
You've been executives and have creatively cultivated television that is still on air, one part of television history, and is adored and loved by many. Case in point, the 4th hour of the Today Show, which I grew up on the Today Show. You had your hand very deeply, and bringing that fourth hour with Hoda and KLG, Kathy Lee Gifford, to air, which has now become a staple for generations of people to enjoy daily. I mean, Brian, tell us about that process, because as an avid Today Show lover, I'm still not over the Matt.
Right.
What's his last name? The Matt Lauer. I was gonna call Matt Kramer. The Matt Lauer debacle.
Right.
However, but that fourth hour, I mean, the genesis. Tell us.
Well, okay, thank you. First of all, thank you. You've made my day. I'm going to moisturize. Hold on. You've made my day, because there are some days where you're just like, oh, boy, it seems so long ago now. And I am proud of the fact that I launched that. It turns out, actually, before Kathy Lee and Hoda, there was a fourth hour, but no one remembers it. I was not running that particular hour. I was second in command at that time. And then there were some changes, and I was lucky enough to rise up to run the transition into the new fourth hour. And that was one day Kathy Lee had been a guest on the original fourth hour, which was Ann Curry, Natalie Morales, Hoda Kotb, and a fourth guest, which was kind of rotating. And we had a very small table. It would not work now, because everyone's got to be small. So they were all like this in this little space.
I know.
Yeah, and the truth is it just wasn't working. I think everyone kind of knew it. And then one day, Kathy Lee came on as a guest and was just, wow.
Fire.
Wow. You know what I mean? And you're like, oh, see, that's what I mean, and I do want to say, with due respect to the four people on air at any given time, they were all talented. There was nothing wrong with any one person on that show, but sometimes you get a combination that's magical. And fortunately, people way above my pay grade said, let's bring, because I wouldn't have even thought, can we get Kathy Lee? I really wouldn't have. I would can we spend that kind of money? Because I'm assuming she'd make a ton of money, and someone did see that and said, let's bring Kathy Lee in. And I got the very wonderful opportunity to cultivate what that show kind of looked and felt like. And it started out difficult because we were outside in April with an audience, because we felt like she needed an audience. But there was no room in the studio for one, and we were freezing. And then, so we found our footing. One of the beautiful things about that show was that it wasn't going to get canceled.
Right.
Because I work on the cable now, and you get 8 episodes of something.
Sure.
And then it gets canceled if it doesn't rise up quickly. Well, we didn't rise up quickly at first. So that was the beauty of that show. And then also just witnessing Hoda, who was kind of she'd been around NBC for a while and not given that opportunity, and she went for it. And then it's and we all loved Hoda. Every producer on staff loved Hoda. They all wanted to work with Hoda. We all knew she was amazing, but up until then, no one had kind of in the position of power given her that platform to really shine. And thankfully, it all worked out. And I only stayed. I only stayed there about 9 months, because another opportunity arose, and I could have stayed there for 10 years and been delighted. But I am a bit of a let's shake things up kind of guy, for better or worse. Most of the time, I think it's paid off. I've taken chances, and I've loved it, every minute of it.
Well, I mean, moving on from NBC, and we'll touch on where you went to after that. But you mentioned Hoda. I used to watch Hoda on WDSU in New Orleans, and my family's from New Orleans. My dad lives in New Orleans, and he would always be like, "You gotta watch Hoda Kotb." She is still the pride and joy of the Crescent City.
Oh yeah,
she's been gone for.
She's beloved.
Yeah, beloved. Yeah. But you said you shake things up, right? And I think you it's a comfort zone thing, right? From what I gathered from you, Brian, watching you on Wendy and on the Today Show, and the way you do things. Which, by the way, your comedic timing is ridiculous, and you are so antithetical to what an executive is, because normally, especially in 2020, where we've been seeing some of these executives get canceled, Barbara Fernita, but no, you are so antithetical to what you're funny, you're jovial, you have an energy about you, yeah. And so you move on from NBC to this juggernaut, Women at a Table, that still to this day will never be recreated in the magic that is The View.
Oh, you know what? There's even a step in between. Yeah. But yeah, so I moved from Today Show to HGTV.
Right.
I went back and forth I actually did a boomerang situation. So I went there to HGTV, where I was like suddenly going from live to cable. Then I left to do The View, which is so weird. Like, it's so rare that a show gives you the opportunity to pivot, to be like, okay, you're in, because so many times we always feel like we're being labeled for whatever it is we're in at that moment.
Sure.
And I've always tried to like say, oh, I have a chance to bust that label. Let's go for it. Like, let's, you know. And so then I went to The View. And there's an example of something like that was a really tumultuous season that I was there. Like,
that was probably like out of all the tumultuous seasons the View's had, that was the one.
Yes. So we had, I mean, there are lots to choose from back then. Now I feel like it's really found its groove, and I'm so happy for the team there. I was there when they brought Rosie O'Donnell back. So it was Whoopi, Rosie, Nicole Wallace, and
Rosie.
Rosie Perez, who I just watched in The Flight Attendant last night. And I'm like, oh. So I went there, and and they had also done an upheaval on the executive side. So they had taken out the previous executive producers and put another gentleman and myself in. And so it was like a really wild time. And I will say, I felt confident in what I was doing. And this is one of those cases where, you know, great paycheck, but I just didn't feel happy.
Right.
And it's that really difficult conversation, especially when you see someone who's working so hard to do something that you're doing, and you're like, but I'm not happy, you know? And I'm like, is it okay? And I had to really have that discussion with myself. So I left after 8 months, and I had to have a conversation with myself. People are going to think I got fired. And for me, that was hard for me to wrap my head around.
Yeah.
But then I was like, I'm still unhappy, and who cares? Like,
right.
So, and it's funny because here I am still making sure I say that I wasn't fired. But so I haven't escaped that kind of weird stigma. But I also then learned from a very beloved friend of mine who said, you know, interestingly, she's a high-powered executive, and she's like, in my line of work, she said, and I think you'll find it too, eventually everyone gets fired at least once. So I was like, oh, you know, that's actually, and as I've gotten older, I've seen that happen.
Yes.
People do get fired all the time, and it's not necessarily about you. It's not
right.
There's so many factors that come in. So that being said, I decided I was unhappy, and I decided to go back to HGTV because I just knew they felt like family. I loved the work, and it was interesting that I was given that opportunity, and it's just a series of crazy coincidences that I was able to just pick up, take 2 weeks off, and go back to a job that I had already left. I've never really left a job that I couldn't bear to be in, but I really wasn't as happy as I could have been at The View.
Well, and also you've been able to recognize that. Brian, hey, I hear you loud and clear, especially they say you haven't worked in this business unless you've been fired once. Hello. Also, secondly, when that conversation, I think a lot of people have that internal struggle about like, I'm at this incredible place that thousands would love to be at. It's like the holy grail, right? But yet, when you open the door, step behind it, and start to move throughout the house, you see what it really is, one. And two, something inside of you there's a funny bone that's being hit over and over and over again that's telling you like, this doesn't feel right. And more times than not, people ignore that, and then they're depressed, they're overeating, they're miserable, they have erectile dysfunction, all these things, right? And so like for you to be able to say, hey, this is the holy grail, but I'm out, says a lot about what you want for yourself. And to go, I mean, you go from The View to HGTV in another amazing capacity, creating content, a vice president of talent and content, creating all this stuff. I mean, Brian, it's just like the ladder. You just keep climbing it.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And although, you know, interestingly, then another like, okay, maybe again, shaking things up, I was like, but okay, so the next logical step when you're at a network at that level, was like, do you want to become a president or a general manager or like higher up? And I was like, I don't, at least not now. I reserve that like moment to be like, okay, well, I'm always very strategic in most of the things I do. Some things are just luck, but I try to be very strategic and always think, okay, what am I doing now that gets me to the next place I want to go? And I was like, okay, I don't really want to rise up the ranks at this particular time. So then do I stay or and I did stay a while. It's like, okay, I'm enjoying myself. Don't rock the boat. And then just a year ago, I'm like, all right, let's rock the boat again. And I
Right.
decided to, start a production company where I could create TV shows and sell them to HGTV or sell them to Food Network or any network. Really, anybody wants to buy one of my shows, I'm happy to. I'm
Well,
not
that's
fussy.
right. That's the smart thing though, betting on yourself, right? I mean, you have online content pop goes the week. I mean, everything you do, as you said, is very strategic. It's very branded. It's very in line with who you are. And it's authentic, right? You're not just putting out content that isn't inspired. That is just like, oh, let me throw it against the fridge and see what sticks. No, you're not doing that. It's very thoughtful and
Thank you.
yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, now we have Balthazar Entertainment, and you are creating content. You're selling content. You are becoming this hub where people can come to get that type of thoughtful content. In 2020, what do we have, and how has COVID and the pandemic forced you to pivot?
Oh, wow. Wow. That's a huge one for all of us, right? Danelle, thank you, by the way.
Yeah.
Daniel, I have terrible vision. Danielle, so thank you.
Yes, Daniel Cotton. He says he has a show idea too.
All right. I'm listening. I get tested all the time because if I go to a location, we're all getting tested and we're all trying to be super safe, but it's definitely intimidating. And, it's such a strange time. And I feel lucky that I'm able to work. Like I really, simple. I recognize that some people are really having a hard time right now. So I feel that I'm able to do this I'm really fortunate. And so we're trying to like get the work as much done as we can in the time that we have. But I think there's this looming situation, as we know, in California. Where are you right now, by the way?
I'm in Miami.
Oh, right. Okay. So, every city and state, it's a little different. And so I just canceled a trip to LA just to be cautious. And now I'm like watching some things that I normally would be on the ground on via, virtual teleconference and things like that. And so it's really complicated. And I will say I don't sleep as much as I'd like. I'm a little stressed, but aren't we all a little bit stressed about something?
I mean, if you're not stressed, you're not alive. But with that said, though, Brian, like, how do you practice self-care? Like, what have you been doing or trying to do at least to have some balance? You can't be all work and no play.
It's true. I've been hanging a lot of wallpaper.
Clearly.
I moved during the pandemic to be closer to the edit rooms of the company. So I'm fortunate enough to have a really wonderful partner who kind of invested in me to do this, named Nancy Glass, who is an icon in her own right. She's hosted talk shows and news shows and has a very successful production company of her own. And she has edit facilities down near Philadelphia. So while I'm based in New York, I got a place in Philly, and I love home renovation. Like the reason I've loved working at HGTV so long is that I love design, I love home, I love expressing myself via home, cooking. I just love lifestyle stuff. And so I've been watching a lot of HGTV at work, but then putting up wallpaper and painting walls, that really has been my Zen thing, is just kind of like trying to turn this place into a home, because I mean, that's all we have right now.
Right. Yeah.
The space that we're in is like, if you can do anything to make your place feel like you, I say do it. Which is why I'm like, why not do a really bold wallpaper in the basement? Why not?
Why not?
Let's make
right.
this my nightclub, because I ain't going to a nightclub. I'm about to order a gin and ginger right now. Thank you.
Do it. I forgot our drinks. We're supposed to have drinks, Brian. I was walking my dog, taking a shower, trying to be fresh for you. Next time.
You do look fresh. And I will say, I do like bartending and making drinks. And I do always, it sounds terrible. I always have a cocktail. Like, I do drink a little more than I did. Do you?
And Yeah, and eat, and I mean, and here's the thing: no one can shame you for that, because we're all coping. If anyone's shaming you for eating and drinking more in COVID, they can F off. Like,
then they're not your real friends.
Right? Block them, delete them, mute them. They're dead to you. No, not really. But okay, so home improvement, of course, was in line with with everything you do, especially with HGTV. I mean, Brian, you're so funny. Have you thought about, I mean, you've done stand-up, but have you thought about going back and doing more stand-up? Like a Netflix special?
And the reason I stopped, I loved doing it, and I did fairly, thank you, by the way. I did love doing it, but it became overwhelming with the hours that I was working, and I'd be like, oh, I had to go back into the city for 5 minutes, you know, like it's really like 5 or 7 minutes, and then I would get longer gigs, and it was going well. But now I would love to go back and do it. It was always hard, and always hard to juggle the commitment, though. And when you start out, they want you to bring people, and I was so fortunate.
Right.
So people would come, and that was really great. And then I started getting some bookings without bringing people. And then the truth is once I went to The View, there was nothing else happening in my life. It was full time. I stopped doing my websites. Everything halted for that show. And that was another part of the reason that I knew that it wasn't for me, because I love to do multiple things, as you do. Like, if you're not doing, like, if you don't have 3 things going on, like, you know the hustle. You know the hustle. I've seen you. You're something, and you're probably like me when you don't have 3 things. Like I was running around earlier. Like, I really was hoping to look a little nicer, but I was like running and couldn't find my tripod, and I like plopped myself down. And then I realized, like, some days when I have nothing going on, I get even more anxious.
Right. Well, it's that for myself though, I think that's founded. If you want to get all like therapeutic with it, I think it's founded in like growing up as a gay kid and like, you know, the overachieving you have that you use to compensate for what you thought was wrong with you, right? You felt like, people, especially like being 90s kids and 80s kids that, you know, like you were told that being gay was bad, right? So what was the best defense mechanism against that? Either one, hiding it, or overachieving and being such a star that it would shroud this reality that you felt was like this curse on you, you know? So I don't think that ever leaves you, even though
I agree. I think for all of us, proving people wrong is such a vindicating feeling.
Oh my God.
I'll show you, you know what I mean? And like, how does I'll show you manifest itself in each of our lives? Hopefully we can spin that into something, a really fun project. I mean, you do all these fun projects, and you always are talking to really interesting people. I see one of your viewers, Minority Report. They have a really great pop culture report.
They do. They're incredible.
So I love people that take and create. And you mentioned it earlier, and I didn't fully answer it. So it's a kind of interesting story. How I kind of got into the pop culture niche was I had been a producer for so long, and then I started doing stand-up, and that's when TV appearances started to come up. But it was this first one where they're like, would you come and do a test pilot for Joy Behar? She's going to do a show on HLN, and we want to see if she can talk about pop culture with everybody. And I'm like, of course. And it was just going to be in a conference room. And I was like, but no, the producer for me is like, how are they going to introduce me? Brian from where? They don't, at the time, they were like, you wouldn't be introduced as Brian from BRIANBALTHAZAR.com. Like, you had to have like a magazine or a TV show. So I created a website in a weekend. I got a WordPress site, created Pop Goes the Week. I only wrote like 5 or 6 pages of content because I knew as a producer they would never go further back than that. And sure enough, I never stopped doing it from then on. And that's how it started leading to other bookings. But I will say, as I get older, I'm not as read in and I'm not as passionate about some of the pop culture things that seem to resonate with people now. I find that's where my own personal pivot has happened. I do love pop culture, but I feel like now it's much more about like backstabbing stories.
Right.
That who talks smack about who. And that is just, as I get older, I feel like I don't want to surround myself with that as much. I don't want to celebrate it. You know what I mean?
Right. You've evolved. And I think that also when you're always in that space of having that content and being forced to, because what people don't understand also, like when you appear on the Wendy show and have to do the headlines, you have to be well studied. You have to be able to attack it from any way that the host wants to go with, right? And that's a lot. It's a lot of freaking work. It's a lot. Yes. People don't get that. It's so, like, even doing research on my guests, some days I'm like, oh my gosh, here we go. But it's exhausting. And you come to a point too where if you're not passionate about that subject, you don't have the energy to give to it anymore. It's just, and that comes from knowing what you want to talk about, knowing what interests you, and being authentically okay with, like, I don't give a shit about that. Like, I don't care that Chloe's back with Tristan. Okay, great, bye. Like, and how does that affect my life?
Right.
You know,
exactly. And so I do feel like this kind of, in a way, like passing the torch of some of the pop. Well, first of all, and you know what? They don't want to see someone. There's going to come a point where they're just like, and this is just the reality of the business. They're like, he's a little older for this category, and that's okay. Like, I'm okay with that. So I've kind of shifted a little bit to more like lifestyle and like bartending, doing some design stuff on my, and then just doing it. If I can't do stand up, I'll do a like ridiculous TikTok, which I do frequently. And to your point, it is unusual to do these things and be an executive at the same time. And I have been, there have been moments where I hit send or hit like post and I'm like, oh, and people laughing at me for the wrong reasons. But then I just kind of think, you know, you have to listen to that voice inside of your head that's like, who are you really? Are you, you're being yourself. If you think it's funny, someone else might. I mean, I'm not immune from self-doubt by any means. But then I'm just like, you know what? Why not? Just do it.
Why not? And you've lived, you know, I think we, as we get older, I would like to believe that we've lived our life for other people for a long time in some capacity, going back to the LGBTQ plus component and just so many ways that we've compromised who we are for the sake of whatever. And so I too, like I do these all the time and have conversations with people and then I post them and I think, who cares? But at the end of the day though, silver linings, you think about your legacy or what you leave behind or your contribution or what feels good to you creatively or what you want to do, what you created and worked very hard to create. And so if your TikToks one are funny, I still haven't mastered the edit. I don't have time for TikTok. I'm sorry. I just can't do it. But for people like yourselves that get it right every single time, you should feel proud about that because that is still a creative endeavor that looks good. And you should never feel guilty about something that you're passionate about. And the people who judge that and the people who follow you, one thing I can't tolerate is people who will follow you, watch all your stories, but will never engage with you in any other capacity just to keep tabs on you. They can kiss your ass because they're not doing half of what you're doing.
Oh, I'll drink to this. I'll drink to it.
I mean, there's people that will watch. I could post a story, Brian, at 5:59 a.m. and that same person will have watched it at 5:59 and it's at 3:59 or 2:59 on the West Coast, right? So it's like whatever, like get a life, you know, like keep doing you, keep shining, and just keep, because at the end of the day, when you die, will it matter that one person didn't approve of your zany TikTok?
Exactly. I couldn't agree more. And I think that is an important message. And I will say, compared to what I'm seeing out there, my stuff is pretty tame.
Well, yeah. I mean, or look, think about all the people that claim to be, you know, conservative with OnlyFans accounts. Like, follow me on OnlyFans to see a different side of me. Whole ass out, just butt cheeks out everywhere. But you know what I mean? Like,
I do. Okay, that's a really interesting conversation because I've also had to tell myself to sometimes, like, I found myself following people that it like created a visceral reaction to me that it wasn't positive. Sometimes I'm like, why am I doing that to myself? And I don't think I'm helping them either. But I am fascinated by TikTok and Instagram in particular, like the currency of one's body, like how that is used as currency. And I don't mean prostitution. I mean just like, okay, for attention and likes. And we all know that even if you're not doing that, you can get some DMs that are like, whoa, okay. But I do worry when people put all that equity in solely the physical. And I get it. Like, people work really hard for their bodies and they deserve to be congratulated. And I understand they're proud of that. But I do worry about what the mental health journey is for someone who's young and doing that. And they see, and the truth is of every business, it's an unfortunate truth that we have yet to really combat is ageism. But like, eventually there's going to be someone younger doing the same thing and they're going to shift, and people are going to shift their eyes to that. And that's hard. So I'm hoping that more people pay attention, like, how else can if you want to impress people, like, don't solely rely on one thing if it's physical. Like, don't really rely solely on the fact that you're well endowed or look good with your shirt off or whatever. Like, and I don't mean to shame. I know I don't body shame people, but I also be like, I hope that they're not investing all of their emotional well-being into someone liking them solely for their physical appearance. I just think that's a very slippery, dangerous slope.
Well, Brian, I mean, you're talking to someone who has, for years, a brand was being on a television show in my underwear, right? And having to, and I get it. But like Michelle Visage says, don't rely on that body. I have worked tirelessly to shift those eyes from that to something that has more substance. So also to show talent that has always been there, just was shrouded and marred by the obvious or the easy, which is underwear, body, abs, all of
Yes.
that, because that does fade. And, you know, it's an interesting journey to have as someone who is, you know, is trying to show
Shift the
different
narrative.
sides, right? And I've seen absolutely shift the narrative, and I've seen the shift in engagement or the shift of approval or the shift in whatever that is from my audience or my public or my followers or my fans or whoever, whatever, my community, whatever we want to call that. So, but that's also a very solid and great point, is that to not put so much equity. And I love how you use that equity. That I like that, because it's true. So much stock is put into these heavily curated pictures of a body that you work hard for. You should be proud that you work hard for your body. You should be proud of your huge endowment or whatever. But also but I mean, but there's more to people, and there's more to a person than just that. And I think now more than ever, though, especially with everything that's happened in the last 4 years, with the myriad of different just initiatives and calls to action and conversations that are had, you know, that people are like, okay, we see that there's more to people than just what they're posting. Let's dive deep, but we have to give people that content. We have to purposely and intentionally show people something different.
Absolutely. And I think you made a really great point. And I think, I think it's like about, you can shift the narrative, first of all. And it is like, listen, I'm the first person to admit, like, if I was cut, I would probably make sure people knew somehow. Like, you know, like, I'm not saying I would never post myself looking cut, but I do think I think that there's so many aspects to who all of us are, and it only encourages us all to express ourselves in a myriad of ways if we all do it. Like, there's, you may make a mean martini. And I'd like to experience that. And, you know, and I make a really great turkey chili. Or, you know, it's so I love seeing all the different facets of a person, and I also just love seeing people's journeys and progression and growth. I love that. I love you for that.
It's inspiring. If you weren't doing all the things you're doing, Brian, if you weren't running around like a chicken with its head cut off, doing 9 million things a day, looking for his tripod for his Instagram live, career-wise, not even career-wise, what would be your purpose? What do you think? Where do you think you would have ended up? But where do you think you would have? What the path you would have taken?
Well, I really wonder about that. I kind of think about, okay, when it's time for a more drastic shift, what would that be? You have so many great followers watching.
Aren't they awesome? And we have 4 questions
that we have in common. Eddie Going, Joanne Lavin, who I adore, and Eddie. I talk about that on my craziest days. I'm like, no one ever yells at you to make the cheese faster. Like, should I be making cheese or maple syrup, like something that doesn't require so much running around? I would probably work in construction. I know that's really pretty butch.
Hey, you're like, hey, well, you have a pretty butch name, BRIAN BALTHAZAR. It sounds like he cuts wood to me.
Thank you. I am very handy around the house, I will say. And I love construction, and I would love to teach. So I might have become a teacher. I was going to study music. It was either music or communications based on the school I went to. And so I do love music. And now I have a piano, actually, but I don't have the time to practice. I'd love to spend more time there. I will say I'm actually more of an introvert than I am an extrovert. Like, this is where I'm extroverted, and then I like step upstairs and
hey, you should be a skull. Also, they want to know the secret of your turkey chili. How do you make good turkey chili?
Well, actually, you know, I should correct myself. I said turkey, but I make an amazing mushroom chili.
Oh, no.
All right, next time you're up on this coast, I do make a great turkey chili. I mean, it is really all about the tomato paste and a nice ground turkey. But mushrooms, for anyone who's a vegan or particularly a vegetarian, it's amazing the consistency you can create that's very meaty with mushrooms when they've been cooked down. You won't even know.
No. Even look, Eddie Going says no mushrooms. I second that. Also, I am Danny Beck says, hey, Brian. Minority report.
Hey, I love Danny. Oh my God. Okay, we can agree to disagree on that one, but it's also about trying new things, Jason.
Fine. Whatever. No.
Okay, let me ask you this. What cocktail-wise, is there a booze that's been ruined for you? I'm going somewhere with this. Or a booze that you just don't drink because you don't like?
Well, I'm not much of a drinker. I'm kind of a lightweight drinker. My drink of choice is a Moscow Mule, yum.
Yes,
And I yeah, so good. And I do a nice sangria with sparkling water.
Oh, I
Real
like
basic,
that. No, that's a good. I think that's a good call.
but basic, really
No,
basic.
a Moscow Mule will never go out of style, and I like kind of adding little new elements to it, which all the bars do, like adding a little grapefruit juice. My point of the journey was that I was gonna like, I'll make you like a liquor that you don't like. I mean, not forcibly, but I would like, my goal would be to make a cocktail that you don't think you're gonna like, that you would like. It's easier for me to get someone to do that than eat mushroom chili. Because mushroom chili, you know how many mushrooms you have to cut up to make this happen? This is
So
not a
right.
bar that you were not expecting.
I would look. I would fine. I would eat the mushroom chili. I just think that mushrooms. I don't know. Someone they said mushrooms taste like meat. Okay, fine, whatever. They taste like meat. So I will take you up on your mushroom chili. But I think that's awesome that you would be a teacher and that you continue. Again, you kind of are already a teacher, Brian. You're giving back. You're showing people. You're showing by doing, and that's something to be lauded and celebrated, and we celebrate you, Brian Balthazar. And I'm glad that you are more craftsman than Chanel. That's what my husband says, because I can't.
That is so the truth. Like, I have to go through when I go through my closet, I don't sort out things well. So I'll grab a pair of pants and then I'll realize, oh, this is a pair of work pants. Like, I'll take a pair of like jeans that were pretty nice, and they'll have paint or like tears in them. So yeah, that's very true. I love that expression.
So butch, Brian. Like, hey, I'm Brian Balthazar.
Yes,
HGTV.
Don't let the boys fool you.
I believe it. Brian, it has been so awesome talking to you, man. I'm glad that we got to connect. I think you're incredible. I think you're talented. I think you are. I don't care how old you become or the ageism, all that bullshit. You have so much to offer, and you've done so much, and your career is awesome. And I'm a huge fan, and I'm so glad and honored that you were able to be on Jason Unleashed.
Likewise. I can say all the same things about you, and will say all the same things about you. What
Thank
a
you.
journey you had, and you just sparkle on camera. You just like, you sparkle. You just got the vibe, the energy, and I enjoy watching you so much.
Well, thank you, man. Well, look, season 4 is going to debut in 2021, so we definitely got to have you back on. But until then, you enjoy the holidays, Brian. Keep on making your mushroom soup. Chili soup, whatever.
And
you say
mezcal. I'm going to introduce you to mezcal, too.
Okay.
Going is right. Mezcal is where it's at.
And that's tequila, right?
Yeah, it's essentially tequila. It's like a smokier version. It's agave, like tequila.
Okay. Hey, I'll take it. And I'm also, at Danny Beck says we both sparkle on camera. We shine bright like diamonds, Rihanna.
I'm with you there. Thank you.
All right, Brian. Happy holidays. Talk to you soon, brother.
You too. See ya.
Bye.
Bye.